What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so people are seeing through this imposter's uh, charade. All right, they're seeing through his act, and by that I mean the guy here. His name is Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, up until recently, he was perceived to be the surging Republican candidate for president. Now, of course, he wasn't going to win the Republican nomination for president, but was hope by many that he might be the guy that get the second spot on the ticket. Now, one thing I do think is true: the Republican Party wants to shake this image that they are a party full of WS's, right? Can't really say what I want to say on here. They want to shake that image. But the problem is, because of the base of the Republican Party, they're not going to they're not going to not anytime soon at least. They're not going to nominate anybody at the top of the ticket who was too overtly ethnic in appearance. It's just not going to happen. It's not. It's just not going to happen. They're going even if they got to make up fake, real non-issues, but try to make them issues. You know, as we've seen them in the past. I remember with Alan Keyes, that the media just never took him seriously. Even though if you watch the debates, if you really watch debates with an open ear and non-prejudiced eyes and actually listen to what Alan Keyes was saying, he actually won a lot of those debates. But people didn't care about that because they already had in their minds who they're going to support, and it wasn't going to be Alan Keyes, right? And by the way, if you're not familiar with Alan Keyes, he was African American. Then I remember, what's the one that passed away during the pandemic? I'm always forgetting his name. Herman Cain. Remember Herman Cain had his little peak in the 2012 Republican debate, and then what happened? Then all of a sudden you seen this fake scandal where all these white women were pulled out by the boatload or the tonnage. All of them fat and middle-aged now, but supposedly back in the day there was a nice piece of ash, and supposedly Herman Cain was trying to shove his tongue down their collective throats, and there was no lawsuits, but apparently it was just enough to smear him to move him off of the headlines, right? And ruin his momentum. Then Ben Carson, the guy is a brain surgeon, right? But yet you still had people, they made up a narrative about, well, I don't question his intelligence, but I don't know about his foreign policy credentials. And I think to myself, well, what the fuck does Donald Trump know about foreign policy? Well, he's a businessman, so he's worked with people overseas, so he knows. Look, what the fuck they got to do with foreign policy? They don't have anything to do with geopolitics. Just because he go over there and work with and have done business with foreign businessmen. But then again, they had no problems with Sarah Palin being the fucking vice president. So it's always these bullshit excuses. Now with Tim Scott, it's does he have a girlfriend? I mean, we need to find these things out. Why does he have a girlfriend? I want an American candidate with an American nuclear traditional family, but nobody cared about Lindsey Graham, or should we say Miss Lindsay, right? Nobody cared about his personal life. His personal life was his personal life. And he's older than Tim Scott. So now with Vivek Ramaswamy, you had some people questioning his experience. The fact that he only has been voting since 2020, when he was, 36, 35 years old. So, by no means am I defending these people. I'm not defending them, but I'm pointing out the hypocrisy in the GOP when it comes to these situations. So now, it's looking like Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is surging. Nikki Haley is surging in the polls. She's now jumped, she's vaulted into second place nationally, while Vivek Ramaswamy has fallen to fourth nationally after being second as recent as 2 weeks ago. As a matter of fact, Nikki Haley has jumped ahead of, what's his name, Ron DeSantis. She's jumped ahead of Ron DeSantis 19% to 10% for second place in New Hampshire. So, what does this mean? I don't know. I don't know what it means exactly, but my guess is we're closing in on a year until the presidential election, and we're closing in on about 3.5 months, I guess, now until the primaries. So we're getting closer to that time period when voters are really starting to pay more attention to these candidates and making up their minds. And also, don't ever underestimate the influence of corporate media. Nikki Haley checks a lot of marks that the GOP want in a candidate right now, as far as what they consider diversity. Technically, Nikki Haley is a minority. I believe she's of Indian descent. But from appearance, she's pretty close to a white woman. I mean, you can make the argument that if you look at Nikki Haley, she would pass as, if you didn't know any better, Italian. If you just looked at her, right? So even though she's technically an Indian American, she's not, her appearance isn't ethnic enough to warrant the sheer rejection, total rejection, and silent revulsion of the GOP. Let's be honest. They're always going to find some reason to depower a black candidate. That's just what the facts are. I'm not pulling this shit out of my ass. It always happens. But Nikki Haley is a woman and technically a minority, right? So she checks certain marks when it comes to the GOP, who are in danger of looking perhaps racist, right? Because there's pressure on them to choose someone who is a woman of color. The Democrats did it. Just choosing a woman isn't good enough this time because the Republicans already have pushed past that barrier in 2008 with Sarah Palin. So it's pressure on them to pick a woman, quote unquote, of color. So I wouldn't be surprised if the mainstream media start pushing Nikki Haley. And I wouldn't be surprised, too, if Nikki Haley, who has been critical of Donald Trump, suddenly starts becoming more and more critical of the Biden administration. Because I think she realizes that she's not going to beat Donald Trump. That's just not going to happen. But if she play her cards right, she could wind up in the number 2 position. She could. These other candidates, I just don't see it. Vivek Ramaswamy, that's not going to happen. Chris Christie. too fat. Um, Americans don't like their presidents looking like that. You know what I'm saying? The last time we even had a president who was mildly overweight was probably FDR, and that was the first half of his term. We haven't had a president that obese since Taft. It just Americans just don't like fat presidents, man. They just don't. And anyway, what else do I want to say in this particular video? Vivek Ramaswamy, I think another thing that hurts him, other than the obvious, is that he just seems so fake and phony. He just has a fake personality. He comes across as one of these. He comes across as one of those guys who used to be on TV back in the day, 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to pitch some awful product and trying to convince you that it was actually a bargain at $39.99 with 4 monthly shipment payments. You know what I'm saying? Like some piece of shit that's gonna break in about 2 weeks. But hey, if you got to have this shit, man. I'm telling you, it's the best product ever. You're gonna thank me. Your life's gonna improve dramatically if you just buy this product with just 4 monthly payments of $39.95 a month. It's like one of those dudes from back in the day, man. Just a rancid ass, fucking cheap ass salesman who ain't selling you shit. Then he always talking about I'm the children of immigrants. I'm the child, excuse me. I'm the child of immigrants. But what he fails to put out there is that, because people tend to think immigrants, they tend to think poor. But his family were rich. They were millionaires. So, he pushed this bullshit dream, man. Nobody want to hear that shit. So get the fuck out of here. All that ass kissing and you get your reality check. Kill me all the time with these motherfuckers, man. Larry Elder does so much what all the time, and then he wasn't allowed to enter the debates. Then he was talking about discrimination. Man, shut up. I don't hear you. I'm not feel sorry for you. All the fucking defending and shielding you do. So that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.